I've been playing video games since the first time I launched Just Jackrabbit 2, Colin McRae 2, and that one round of Tarzan on my computer. Every adventure that I experienced made gaming more and more of my hobby. And now, nearly 20 years later, I'm starting to realize that the world of our games might never be the same again. Well, most likely our experiences will improve, but at what cost? To find out, I recommend sticking out until the end. Let's begin. Good day lads, I'm Mr. Moss, and together with you I'm witnessing a war currently unfolding in the gaming industry. A subtle war, one that for us gamers might result in games resembling the classics from the dark ages when we didn't have DEI, inclusive politics and so on. You know, something more familiar than the current monstrosities released for hundreds of millions. And let me clarify that I'm not talking about woke and anti-woke war, pretty and ugly chicks in the games, and incels and white knights thinking that exactly he is right in this situation. Even though this attempt to change the world through games served as a spark that ignited a path to an end none of us would otherwise wish for. One that now seems to be welcomed with open arms. This war concerns how China is slowly but relentlessly becoming a powerhouse in the gaming world, consuming the market like that little blob in Agaria. But hey, to the point. The inspiration for this video came to me from two things, so we will start with first one, which is Marvel Rivals, and we will end up with second one, which is TikTok. Release of Marvel Rivals caused a huge stir in the gaming market for many reasons. Let's begin traditionally with the colossal flop called Concord, produced by Sony, which ended up making more money off trailers than from the actual release. A significant factor in its failure was the price. The game cost $40 at launch and aimed to compete with Overwatch, which has been free for a long time. Additionally, the game implemented progressive design and messaging, to the point where every main character looked a certain way and had to have pronouns displayed on a selection screen. After all, how else could we refer to them correctly? Well, we don't have to worry about this anymore, as the game died after 14 days and I'll probably never get tired of reminding you that. And this game is particularly relevant to the story because Marvel Rivals turn out to be the complete opposite of the progressive design. The game is based on similar principles to Overwatch, but just look at these characters. Skills matching their description, comic book-like style pouring out of the screen, and most importantly, dedication to what fans know and love. Do you see anything wrong with that? I don't. But former Blizzard director Mike Ibarra does, and he just had to state that on X platform that Marvel Rivals is a copy of Overwatch, and the name Widowmaker is a ripoff of Black Widow from Overwatch. Alright, let's embarrass a little bit Mr. Mike, and let's look only at Marvel Cinematic Universe. When did Iron Man 2 come out? In 2010. And when did The Avengers release? In 2012, both films feature Black Widow, even though Mike claims that Marvel Rivals copied homework from Overwatch. Well, if that's the case, shouldn't Overwatch immediately remove Widowmaker to compensate for Black Widow's existence? After all, we want to be fair, don't we? Gamers just want to have fun, and that's why Marvel Rivals keeps attracting new players while Overwatch keeps losing them. And they have many reasons for this. Players feel cheated after Blizzard released Overwatch 2, which promised a brand new PvE mode, but turned out to be Overwatch 1.5, offering no significant value. Then there's also a fact that Blizzard designs its characters according to the scale determining how inclusive and therefore valuable they are. Blizzard literally created a tool to measure how minority-friendly a character needs to be to meet their standards and be included in the game. This is the same Blizzard that originally marketed Overwatch with an oversized, hyper-masculine German guy and two ladies with exaggerated attributes that later had to be toned down to avoid offending Western audiences.
The world could always use more heroes.
Now, this company is losing to so-called Chinese knockoff that isn't afraid to create characters as they believe players will enjoy them. And what makes it even funnier is that after premiere of Overwatch 2 to buy new characters you had to buy Battle Pass or you had to wait until next season. And in Overwatch 3, Marvel Rivals, you got all characters on a premiere free to test and play. And if you really want to spend money, you can spend it on cosmetics. This isn't entirely up to developers either, as Chinese companies are strictly forbidden from depicting male characters with feminine traits or female characters with masculine traits, something that's both Neil Druckmann's dream and hallmark of Japanese artists. And I'm pretty sure that Neil Druckmann would be rather sent to Siberia than to China. While this might occasionally resonate with players, and I don't want to venture into this territory to research it, I can confidently say from both Western and Polish perspectives that the days of voting with our wallets for strong female characters resembling men in their physicality and characters are over. Gamers just want feminine women and masculine men. And no, I'm not saying it as frustrated incel, gooner or whatever new word you imagined, but as someone who'd rather play an ugly custom character, a monkey or a robot, than a character who makes NPCs do push-ups because they use the wrong pronouns or listen to an author's personal imaginary conversation with their parents through a drone dragon just because they lacked attention in childhood. And that brings us to the root of the conflict. One side seems to understand gamers' expectations and tries to meet them. Unfortunately, this is the Chinese side. Companies like Tencent have invested heavily in Riot Games, Ubisoft, Blizzard, Techland, Unreal Engine, and all games built on it. And now NetEase has entered the gaming market with Marvel Rivals and previously with Diablo Immortal. You can argue about its quality, but it earned a lot of money, seriously hurting that fragile connection between gamers and the Western market. If this string continues to stretch, Chinese companies might gain dominance over Western companies, causing studios like Ubisoft, rumored to be under Tencent's side for acquisition, and others to become prime targets for Chinese giant. The scariest part of this situation, as one of my teachers said, is that the Chinese don't care whether they will rule over a thriving world or a cemetery. While Western developers debate whether to include surgery scars or pronouns in their games, Tencent and NetEase wonder how many more games they need to release to take over the market. And here's the beauty of this industry. Because we, the players, don't have to do anything at all. For years we've been told that if we didn't like something, we should vote with our wallets. So now, with the situation reversed and the gaming industry in need, we can simply say, you should have created games with passion, not a message, and just play what we like. It is no coincidence that none of the major Western games released this year were nominated to the Game of the Year 2024. And how many games from 2025 will end up being flops or already hint that the companies behind them cared more about delivering a message than pouring genuine passion in their projects. The point is that, as players, we are finally learning to vote with our wallets and play games we actually enjoy. If you don't like the game from Czech studio, maybe you'll play a Japanese one. And if not that, perhaps you'll dig up some old game from a few years ago that you bought on sale. But you probably will not play a rushed, slapped together game that had to be postponed because it was so poorly received by players. Nor you will play a game where the art director added pronouns and DEI elements just to annoy someone who is the director of Twitter. In the grand scheme of Chinese-driven industry, we are just small pawns and it's not our job to win this game. If companies decide that they value their message above all else, they might find themselves not being able to make any creative risk and put any personal agenda in their games. Because as long as stories provide escapism for us, we don't care if character modeler was Hyang Chu or Matt Hansen. Let them worry about agendas and messages while they still can. This is exactly what happened with TikTok once upon a time. America had its own format, Vine, riding the wave of popularity until TikTok came along. It slipped through the doors and windows into nearly every phone, and now it's hard to find someone who hasn't tried that brain-numbing mass-market content. But it doesn't work that way everywhere. Install TikTok in China, Chinese version is called Douyin or something, and it will show you far more educational, mentally stimulating content. It's almost as if the Chinese government wants its citizens to be more developed than the rest of the world, which is busy consuming its 100 mind-melting video, shrinking their brains to the size of a peanut. Now it's worth asking one question. What does it mean if Tencent, a company with massive influence over, for example, Ubisoft, allows it to release a flop like Assassin's Creed Shadows? Is it simply a foolish move on their part, or could it be a deliberate strategy aimed at gradually devaluing these companies until they are perfect for definitive takeover? One thing is certain, we don't have to do anything in this war between the Western market and Asian productions. In the worst case scenario, the gaming industry, with exceptions, collapses. But even then, we can always turn to the Japanese gaming industry, which, even though I really don't like it, seems to be holding up quite well. And the most important thing is to not be bothered by developers complaining on Twitter or Blue Sky when it all goes tumbling down. Because hey, you brought it upon yourself. Hiring people solely to meet quotas, regardless of experience or talent, employing consulting firms that diluted their narratives until nothing remained, injecting personal messages and agendas into games, which the most that we can comment it with is a sigh. Sacrificing engaging characters for ones that tick all the required boxes, charts and so on. And finally, calling players insults for simply wanting to have fun, or gunners, or whatever word you came up with while I was publishing this video. We all choose our paths, and modern developers have chosen theirs. That's why I can only wish both you and myself great games. Nothing more, nothing less. Because that's all that should matter to us. And if you've made it this far, please consider leaving something behind. Like a subscription maybe? I have a very small channel. Thanks a lot for your attention. Take care and goodbye.